Hello, friends. Welcome to the Simple Steps for the Whole You podcast. Today, I'm here with my friend Tina Rolfs. Hi, Tina. Tina and I had a blast doing our first podcast episode. It was actually for Simple Steps, it was number 7, like only our 7th episode.
Yeah.
But it ended up being in the top 5 favorite episodes, like most listens of our first season.
So cool.
And I was re-listening to it and I was like, I love this episode. I love what Tina has to say. So if you've not listened to that one, please go back to episode 7 and hear that episode. It was called Honoring Your Voice with Your Health. So this episode is, again, as was that one, to talk about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. So we'll get into that in a minute. But Tina is in the healthcare and the beauty industry. We'll say both. She's a wife and mother of 2 beautiful sons who are in college now. So she's in a whole new world, season of her life. And just to recap just a little bit from our first podcast episode we did together is Tina had at that time, and you correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, had completed a few surgeries after being diagnosed with breast cancer. So her journey then set forward to begin a whole bunch of learning and listening to her body and her intuition. And then she began to trust herself when it comes to her healing journey. And I feel like that's a message that was in the first one, and I think it's going to carry over to this one. But also in our first episode last October, she taught us that our body is like a terrain that we can nurture to become, if we want to say, resistant towards cancer cells. And the good news that she taught us is that we have some control. So correct me if I'm wrong, Tina, but wasn't the stat that 85% of breast cancer diagnoses are to people who don't have any family history? Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah.
With no genetic root.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And so that just tells you that there's something going on in the body that is not genetic, which means you can have some control over that. And she referenced a lot, and we probably will in this episode, the book, The Metabolic Approach to Cancer. So we'll link to that in the show notes, a must-have, she says.
Yes.
And she just taught us about the 10 terrains in that episode. And I won't go through all of them, but they're things like your stress, sugar, which feeds the cancer cells that are already in our body, and sleep and circadian rhythms and all these kinds of things. So after our last interview, you and big new things started a type of, would you call it in-depth health coach training? So can you just tell us more about that? What are you doing?
Well, I'm so impressed with how much you remembered.
Oh, I had to re-listen to it
From last time. Just like, wow. Yeah. So way to go, girl.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I was so just in with this approach, if you will, that I decided to take a step and become an advocate for the metabolic approach to cancer. So it's about a year program, and it's with Dr. Nasha Winters, who wrote the book, and who is world renowned. She's been speaking and teaching, and this is the 6th cohort. So there's a lot of practitioners and naturopathic doctors and integrative doctors and nurses and people like me that have had cancer and interested in moving forward and learning more about this approach. And it's very cool to see how many people are learning about this so they can educate. And so that is what I've been doing. And so I get the question, well, what will you be doing as an advocate? You know, what's the end goal here? And it's really to walk alongside people that are going through a cancering process, just like I was, and helping to empower them to look at, like I said, before the 10 terrains, and really focus on cultivating health that will put their bodies in the driver's seat instead of the cancer. And so I I love being in that space because there's,
Mhm.
like we talked about, 85% that we can maybe do something about if you choose to, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So it's going to be more not really a health coach, but it'll be helping or really lifestyle changes and also navigating kind of the murky waters of, you know, cancer treatments and
yeah.
the difference between, you know, a standard of care doctor and an integrative
Mm.
doctor and
Mhm.
helping them to mesh those two worlds possibly because some people have to walk in both. And so it's going to be a really interesting journey. Um
Yeah. I do like that, just contrast between the metabolic approach and standard of care are very different. Um, I don't know, do you wanna say more about that, or is it a deep, deep water we don't wanna go in?
yeah, you know what I'm really learning right now, Michelle, is that everybody is different. Everybody is, you know, duh. Like, I mean, that's just the silly statement. But when it
Yeah.
comes to your body and your health, there's not one size fits all cancer treatment. And so we are bio individual is kind of
Mm.
how we talk about that.
Mhm.
So so standard of care is it's more kind of a thought process of war on cancer and getting rid of the cancer and eliminating the cancer and um kind of the person, at least in my story, I kind of felt like I was kind of not a victim, but more in that victim mentality, like, please help me. I can't really do anything but wait till the next test comes along or the next surgery or my treatment is done. And you're more of a, like this help, more of a help. At least that's how I felt. And I feel like a lot of people do feel like that. Do you kind of
Yeah.
get that too? Kind of like this helpless feeling?
Oh, totally, like, and you just like we talked about in our first episode, like, you felt like you needed to listen to the doctor because they're the professional,
Right.
and then you learned some things, and it took you a while though, and then you like said wait, and then it ended up having to tell the doctor, I'm going to go a different route, and it was really, really hard.
It's hard.
But not that that's what everyone should do. Is
Right.
that is I love that you're approaching it as if we are really uniquely made, which God says we are.
Yes.
And you also explained in that episode how cancers are different, and yours was at a stage or a
Hmm.
place where you could go that route. And
Hmm.
so just the idea of educating yourself with your health is advocating for yourself,
Hmm.
honoring yourself. Um, this amazing story of where you've come and how you've learned. Like, I have seen, as I walked with you, have seen you grow so much in because you in your health you took agency. And so in other areas of life, you also did because you had done a piece of a triathlon, right? The biking piece when you were, well, like not long after you're diagnosed. Would you say, was it about a year or was it less? I don't know.
It was no, it was after all of my surgeries. So
Yeah.
2022, I had a lot of the surgeries, and then in July I did the bike portion of the Ironman, and then
Okay.
decided in August to take on a full to do
Yeah.
all three disciplines. Yeah, 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 yeah.
And you've
Yep,
done it how many
yeah,
times now?
yeah, yeah. So
Triathlon.
that was just one time.
Okay.
In July, this last July, I did the
Okay.
swimming, biking, and the running, the 70.3, which was an
Wow.
amazing experience and journey. And it was hard. It was hard training and really,
Yeah.
but the cool thing is because I had done the hard work of getting myself to metabolic flexibility. And that's, I mean, we could do a
Mm.
whole podcast on metabolic flexibility, but there's a lot out there. And in the book, it talks about that. I
Mhm.
was able to do this without totally stressing my body out because it's a lot of
Yeah.
exercise.
Oh, yeah.
So, and being able to use ketones and glucose, which is basically what metabolic flexibility is, um, so that I could stay in my low carb
Mhm.
diet
Mhm.
place,
Yeah.
which puts me into a good place to not get cancer again, if that makes
Yes.
sense.
Yes.
So I was able to do it in a healthy way that was good for my body.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which was really exciting
Totally. You do hard
to
things.
be able to do that and do it
Yeah.
in a healthy way, you know?
Oh, you do hard
So
things. And didn't you also do, though, another marathon or 2,
I
like,
did
this
well, I did
fall?
that, and then I did another triathlon a couple
Okay.
months later that was a shorter one, and I actually got 2nd, which I was really
What?
excited about. And then just got 3rd in this
Mm.
half marathon that I did up in Bellingham. So it's just
Ooh.
been really fun. And
That
now it's the repair phase.
I'll say.
Yeah.
So it should be. It's winter anyway, so
Oh my gosh.
but
So yeah.
yeah, it seems like what you learned with the breast cancer, trial and challenges that you went through, it translated to other parts of your life where I see this, you taking agency over your body, and then you formed resiliency, and you said, "Oh, my body can do hard things
Yeah.
and survive."
Yeah.
And it's sort of like all in one package to me as I look at you and your story. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. That was well, and to do it in a healthy way rather
Yeah.
than throwing your body into something that maybe, for instance, a lot of triathletes carb load, and I had to do carb loading,
Mhm.
but that's like crazy when you're thinking about, a low carb diet for cancer. But
Yeah.
I worked with a coach to be able to do it for my body.
Mhm.
Again, not a cookie cutter one size fits all.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of is the theme here, is
Yeah.
that you are
Right.
different, right? Like what you were saying, we're all different, and we all have to listen to our bodies and
Mhm.
do it in a way that's going to not throw us into complete stress and chaos. And then, kind of like this,
Mhm.
but more of this health, um, this place of health, if that makes sense.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so how do you feel about your health now? Let's say from a year ago when we talked. How's it
Yeah.
feel overall?
Um,
There's probably
so
ups and downs, I'm guessing.
yeah, yeah, the ups and the downs. And it actually feels really good because I have been staying in touch with my naturopath. And even just yesterday, I did a vitamin C treatment and got my blood work done, and
Mhm.
just really, being staying in this surveillance mode. And
Mm.
so it's really empowering to see my numbers even going in a better direction. Um, and just know that, like, I think on the other podcast too, I said I don't feel like we're ever done, and so it feels
Yeah.
really good to know step by step and also be empowered each time with those testings,
Yeah.
because I'm empowered. I'm not just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm like,
Right.
I am moving in these terrains where I,
Yeah.
I'm still moving forward in having that cultivating health, if you will. So
Mhm.
so I still feel really empowered, but also, I mean, just being in this class, oh my
Mhm.
gosh, there's so many things that I've been learning too, that now I'm able to take other steps in other areas, not just my diet, but like in, you
Right.
know, other places where I need some work,
Mhm.
but step by step by step. So
Yeah.
it just keeps getting deeper and deeper, but it doesn't feel overwhelming or scary or anything, because it's like your podcast, step by step by step.
Yeah. And the whole person care, the whole
Yes,
person. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
It, there's always some balance to be worked out, right? Did you see the
Always.
sun just came out? It's like blinding. It was pouring rain and
Oh,
now I look like an angel. Okay.
you always do, girl.
So you had mentioned this idea of working with your body, so listening to your body, empowering your body, versus this phrase that's often thrown around called the war on cancer.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. Do you want to say any more about that?
Yeah. So again, it kind of goes back to, the difference between standard of care and the metabolic approach to cancer is just the mindset, right? It's more of an empowering mindset where here's the things I can do. even if I am going through chemo and that's what I have
Yeah.
to do for my particular cancer. It's not necessarily I'm just going to be like war, 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 enemy, like that.
Right.
It's more, yes, we're going after the tumor, but also
Mm.
I am improving my terrain so that my body can take on healing. And I
Yeah.
think that's the part that gets lost in standard of care is our bodies are so powerful, and again, our minds, our bodies, our spirits are so powerful.
Mhm.
And I don't think that the whole standard of care puts that into the important place that it should be.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm trying to think of what you asked me.
Yeah, and that's fine. No, just
Oh,
that
the war.
term
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
war.
The
But it's like
war.
when you're looking at one of the terrains is immune system, correct? So
Yep.
if you just take that one and you're like, how can I build my immune system while going through
Yes.
chemo or something like that? Like just that even is
Exactly.
more of a not like war on, but it's like build up, like of a building up idea of like, I'm going to do what I can do for this body because I know it can handle stuff. It was made to fight off disease. It was made for that if given the right tools.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So, and I think that I'm just going to read this because this was from one of my
Yeah.
modules, and it says the more we focus on the outside tangible things, such as thinking of our physical treatment choices, where regardless if they're naturopathic or allopathic, whatever,
Mhm.
but if we just focus on that, um, and that's the only place that healing lies, the more stuck and disempowered we become.
Stuck.
So
Yep.
I really loved that. It's like I'm stuck in this mindset of this, I have no control here. And we talked about this last time, but it's just a more like holistic approach to doing this. And some cancers too, you can just completely, because they're so metabolic
Mhm.
in nature, that you can just absolutely, get rid of cancer that way. But
Yeah.
sometimes you do both. And
Yeah.
that's where you need somebody that's going to um lead you with a holistic mindset.
Yes. And you're going to get really practical with us and tell us some
Yeah.
things. Yeah. I love this. So Tina always has such good information and you might be thinking if I don't have cancer, but I'm concerned about it, or I know a friend who does. I mean, this is applicable to all of us because you never know when we're going to be in the place to either deal with it ourselves or help a friend through it.
Right.
So, but first, your list of just things that I was not aware of
Hmm.
that we can do to, I guess, is it to deal with all the terrains or just
Well, I kind of picked, because it's breast cancer awareness month. I picked one of the areas that we when we're diagnosed with breast cancer, we get a grade, so what grade it is, and then also if it's estrogen positive.
okay.
And because 70 to 80% of breast cancers are ER positive, estrogen positive, I wanted to talk a little bit about that being a huge driver of
Okay.
breast cancer,
Yes.
and also kind of where this comes from and
Mhm.
what we can do to empower ourselves to take, to decrease
Yes.
estrogen in our lives. And I mean I just had no idea about this, so this was actually one of the areas that I took on this year, and in cleaning up my hormone terrain, because that's
Mm.
one of the trains is your hormones.
Okay. Yep.
And so I kind of wanted to share a couple of things about estrogen and
Gotcha.
what we can do in that area.
Yes, please.
So yeah, okay. So so estrogen dominance, and this is where, a lot of us live, unfortunately. Um, so causes of estrogen dominance: diet, of course, right?
Mhm.
Stress, estrogen mimicking chemicals. So what would that be? So I've learned that estrogen mimicking chemicals are on receipts. Handling receipts is a big
Wow.
one. Isn't that
Oh,
crazy? So I
just hold
try
it like
not
this.
to, or I use it's so weird because I'm like, that's okay. I don't need a receipt. And I have a business, so I have to keep receipts. So when I'm
Yeah.
dealing with receipts, I put my gloves on now and I feel like a dork, but it's a thing. So
Wow.
so
Who
if you
knew?
can, I know. So if you can just not take the receipt or you use your, coat and grab it and throw it in your purse, and then you can take them out with a glove.
Put it in a little Ziploc or
You can
something.
put it in the Ziploc.
Okay.
I know it seems so weird, but
Is it the ink on the receipt?
it's actually the paper.
What? Okay.
It's the paper. So that's, yeah. So receipts,
Okay.
toxins and the lack of detoxifying. So that was one of the things too for me. I have a hard time processing estrogen. So, and that was done. I actually have, I don't know if I can show this, Michelle, but can I show them
Yeah.
the test? Okay. So
Sure.
this is the test
Yeah.
that my naturopath gives me, and it's a hormone test. So you just like pee on a stick really is what you
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
And, you can look at like how you're processing hormones, but also where things are getting stuck. So if they're getting stuck,
Mhm.
they're not, they're, you know, they can do things
Yeah.
that to our cells, because all of our cells have estrogen receptors. And so if you have a cancer that has an estrogen receptor and you have estrogen just sitting in your body, guess what? There you
Yeah.
go. So that's a big one too. So kind of understanding your hormones, and if you do detox correctly, or if you need some liver
Mhm.
support, and I do.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things. So stress on the liver. And also we can get estrogens through our wastewater or water. So and and you had asked me like, what? Like
Yeah.
why is
So
that? So
surprising.
I'm just gonna read this. It's really interesting. So um these estrogens enter the water through human and animal excretions and are rinsed down the drains or deposited directly into the ground.
Mhm.
Wastewater treatment facilities do not have the technology to remove estrogens or estrogen mimicking chemicals from wastewater, so levels of estrogen continue to rise as they cycle through our waterways. And so
Mm.
that's where, definitely like the Berkey or water filtration systems,
Purification. Yeah.
even water, coming through the shower. That's the latest thing that we have changed is all of our shower heads they're filtered now.
Oh, you can do that. Oh,
hmm There's a great
groovy.
I just ordered one on Pro
Mhm.
One water filters actually, and
Okay.
that's a step that you can take too to
Okay.
just the cleanliness of our water is really huge.
Mm.
And the other one that's really big is our plastics. And so
Mhm.
um getting rid of that we just did, we threw away all of our Tupperware. I
Yeah.
did keep a few, of my mom's
Favorites.
old Tupperware,
Oh, wow.
but that's just for
Yeah.
nostalgia, right? That's just like over here.
Mhm.
But yeah, so plastics, changing your water bottles to stainless steel. That's
Mm.
another thing. And then the big one too, and we've talked about this, you and me, Michelle, are microplastics,
Mhm.
right? That's on cutting boards. If you use a Ninja, the plastic,
Yeah.
uh, and I was using warm, like my bulletproof coffee, I was
Mhm.
mixing in that, and plastics are coming. And so I've done that for
Oh,
2 years. And I was like,
yeah.
oh my gosh. So those are the things that I've changed to decrease my estrogen, because there's nothing I can do about the estrogen that
Mm.
nobody told me about in birth control pills that I took for
Mm.
15 years.
Yeah.
I can't do anything about that, but I can
Right.
do something moving forward
Yes.
to bring that estrogen down. So is that helpful?
Oh, so helpful. Yeah. So, couple questions. Yeah, then wood cutting boards are better than plastic. I never even thought about that.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Boy,
Yes.
so many things I've never thought about. Is it a pretty large amount of is it hard to say? Like some of these are, I assume, a little more estrogen than others, more. I knew about the plastic, but like just even the water, it's hard to, do they have measurements for that kind of
They
thing?
do actually. If you
Okay.
go to your zip code
Okay.
and you can just put water quality in my zip code, you can look
Oh.
and see what's in your water.
Oh, okay. And would it
Yeah.
say estrogen? Like it will say estrogen, or it will be some kind of other term for it, I wonder.
You know what? That's a really good
I'm
question.
just kind of geeking out on this, but
Yeah.
I'll investigate. I'll investigate.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah,
S-
interesting.
Circling back to the Dutch test is, so let's say, like I haven't had hormone testing done yet. I was just thinking about it, and but besides that, what else would you do? Would you just pretty much have to go ask for that from a naturopath, or would doctors do it if you ask them? I know that very few doctors are educated in the like
Yeah.
menopause area, so I don't know. Will they do hormone testing if you ask?
I it I the Dutch test, I believe you can get.
Do
Um,
yourself?
I believe
I
so.
think so
And
too. Yeah.
yeah, you can do this and you just pay it. The thing with these, I mean, you can do a blood test.
Ah.
You can do a genetic test. You
Hmm.
can do different tests. It's just you pay out of pocket.
Right. Of course.
Right? Which
Yes.
is kind of, what we're getting used to now.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you wanna do more of the exploratory, like,
Yeah.
other type of,
Like
testing.
glucose monitors and all those kinds of
Right,
things. You
right, which is
buy it
really
yourself.
amazing too.
I
Oh my
know,
gosh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so the Dutch test you can get, this is through Precision Analytical Incorporated. It's a couple
Sure.
$100,
Hmm.
and, I mean, the thing is you do need someone, to help you read it, and so that
Hmm.
would probably be a naturopath, but I did get a complete, PDF back, and
Okay.
it showed me levels and different things. So,
Okay.
within the standard
Yeah. Ranges.
population or whatever.
Yeah.
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 Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. This is so much. A little fire
I
hose
know.
here. And so it's going to beg another podcast episode, I'm sure, coming
Oh,
up with Tina. But anyway, all right. I love those drivers that you can look at. It's kind of what you call them, isn't it? That we can reduce those in our lives. It's awesome. Estrogen drivers. Now, you have some 5 empowering steps for us. I'm really in love with these. You want to take us through them? Is there anything you want to say before that?
no, yeah. Yeah, just yeah, I mean, we could do a whole other
Yes.
podcast on the drivers of breast cancer, but I just want to go back and encourage, if you're looking at taking a deep dive into complete health
Yes.
and you don't want to be one of the stats. 1 in 3, I believe it is now, will
Mm,
get cancer in some way, shape, or form.
mm,
Um, and the test that is in this book is all the 10 terrains, and you can actually go through each of those. And that was really helpful for me
mm,
to look at my highest number or my highest score and address that first. Because
oh,
when
that's
you start
brilliant.
looking at all of this, it's overwhelming.
Hmm.
And that's why an advocate can help you walk through that if you are in a cancering process. If you're not, but you don't want to walk into that, or you want to do
Yeah.
everything you can, that I think would be the most empowering step for everybody to do is get the book,
Mm-hmm.
take the test, take your top 3 and look at the things that you can do because it gives you steps through the book.
Brilliant. Yes.
Yeah.
I love that
So
step.
good. It
Okay.
really is really good.
I'm going to do that.
So if you know somebody or you get a cancer diagnosis,
Yeah.
um, I do have the next 5 steps that are super, super empowering. And the first one is to stop and breathe. And what happens, at least to me, is that I heard you better get into surgery ASAP.
Mm,
Like, not don't pass go, just and what I've learned is it took a long time for me to develop cancer, 50 years. I'm
mhm,
not going to die tomorrow. Now that's not for everybody,
mhm.
but I can have a minute to breathe.
Yeah.
And what happens with breathing is you get out of that fight or flight, right? Because when you get a cancer diagnosis, it's very scary.
Yes.
Or when somebody you love gets a cancer diagnosis. And what
Yes.
do? You go to Google and you start researching and then
Yeah.
you start asking everybody. And then you're just like, "Whoa, what can I do?" And I wish somebody would have told me, breathe.
Mhm. Mm. Yeah, such a
Let's put,
simple but powerful thing. Yeah.
well, you have a whole ministry on this, Michelle. I mean, this
Mhm.
is like your thing, right? It's like how
Breathe and be, that's
powerful
what it's
breathe
called.
and be.
Yeah, yeah, it's true.
It's so powerful, and that's where the Holy Spirit lives in our breath. So we call upon the Holy Spirit, we put our rational brains online,
Mhm. Yeah.
and we sit and we listen to our bodies, and I
Mhm.
wish somebody would have told me that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if I was sitting with a friend or they called me right after a diagnosis, that is a really practical thing I could say is, Tina, let's stop and take
yeah,
a breath.
yeah,
And I could
yeah,
just sit with them in that for a minute. Simple, but really powerful. Yeah.
and this is really scary,
Yeah.
this is scary, and
Yeah.
you are powerful. God is
Yeah.
powerful, right? And just kind of getting somebody, because you can't make rational
Mm-mm.
choices.
You
And so
can't.
when yeah. So
Yeah.
that was really big. So that's
That is
the first
great.
step.
Okay.
Step 2, get a second opinion
I love
or a
that one.
third opinion,
Hmm.
or a fourth opinion. And um find doctors that resonate with you,
Yeah.
and not just even a recommendation. Sometimes, listen to yourself, listen to your body, and if they're like, and yes, if you're in stage 4, yes, I mean, sometimes there is that,
Hmm.
yes, but it doesn't mean you can't get a second or third opinion in the different realms: standard of
Hmm.
care, integrative, functional,
Yeah.
metabolic, all of that. Get them all.
Yeah. It's going to be probably challenging to do that right then, because like you said, you're thrown into this urgency. They're going to,
Yes.
it's going to be fostered inside of you, this I must do something fast. And we all know it takes a long time to get into doctors, to find the right doctors, but
Yes.
that would be your work right then, is
Yes.
to and delegate, have some people help you research
Right?
doctors and start
Mhm.
interviewing them, and it's worth it from what I've
And
seen from your story.
and that's huge too, is interview the doctors, and I actually have a handout,
Mm.
that I don't uh, that if
Can
somebody
we,
wanted to email me, I could
yeah,
send them the handout, because it does give
okay,
you the interview questions for the doctors, that a lot of doctors don't really want to answer these questions, and if they don't, that's probably not the right doctor for you.
true. That's perfect. I'm going to put your email in the show notes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or people have questions.
So I wish I would have known that.
Hmm.
So step 3,
You must have just made up your own questions in the when you were
no, no, I just
you
followed
didn't know what.
suit
Oh,
like a good soldier, because I was told to, and then I was like, okay, but I had to have somebody that I trusted
yeah.
tell me, get a second opinion, and that's
Mm.
when everything shifted.
Yes.
So thank God for my stepmom.
Yeah. Brilliant.
So step 3 is to build a team. Build a team of um, so that you build this empowerment around you. And, a team of people are important, to support you. And every patient should feel like they have a focused plan of action that is specific to them.
Mm.
And so they have, their next steps, that sort of thing. So your team is, friends and family that are supporting you, your naturopath, your doctor, your surgery team, your yoga and meditation instructor, your
Mhm.
how are you going to work your body out during this time? Maybe you go to Pilates, that's a
Mhm.
part of your team. Maybe a
Yeah.
counselor. For me, I chose to do counseling through my process
Yeah.
because I knew my cancer was linked to some deeper traumas.
Mhm.
And there's a ton of research on that as well. So
Mhm.
anyway, so that was my team. But I
Yeah.
didn't look at it like that, but I
But
wish I could
you
have.
would now. You would
Yeah,
now. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, yeah. The fourth step is comprehensive testing. So this is kind of goes back to what we were talking about before, and the tests that we would look at in the metabolic approach would be doing that quiz, doing that Terrain 10 quiz to
Okay.
see what could be the drivers for you, because that's really the main, um, the core of metabolic approach to cancer is, why did we get cancer in the first place?
Going to the root. Yeah.
It's not your fault. There's no shame. There's
Mhm.
no blame. I took
Yeah.
birth control pills for 15 years. Nobody told me.
Yeah. We
And I'm
don't
not
know what we
blaming the
don't know.
doctor.
Yeah.
That's just what I did. So,
Mhm.
and I also have all these funky genes. I can't
Mm.
do anything about that. But if I know it, I know also how to maybe turn them off instead of them,
Mhm. Yeah.
kind of running the show. So comprehensive testing, so Terrain 10, so we can look at what I can do and empower myself. And then also your complete metabolic panel, your
Mhm.
CBC, your complete blood count. There's a lot of different tests that you can do. Blood testing wise, genetic testing is amazing. So if
Mm.
anybody wants to do that, um, focusing in on your nutrition genome.
Oh, okay.
That's what we look at in this approach, because it's
And
all
that might show
metabolism.
you, sorry,
Yeah,
that
go
might
ahead.
show you where you need to beef up your nutrition and what areas, or what does
Yeah,
it do? What would
it
it
can.
tell you?
It's so interesting. So it can tell you if you can tolerate dairy.
Oh, okay.
It can tell you if you turn red meat, into sugar
Oh.
instead of protein, because you have a particular SNP, is what you call it, on
Uh-huh.
in a particular gene that does that.
Ah.
For me, I have to take a supplement to transfer fat into my cells. Didn't
Hmm.
know that. So I had a hard time getting into ketosis for my
Mhm.
part of my treatment.
Mhm.
Didn't know that. Went back to my genetic test. There it is.
Mm.
It's so interesting if you should do chemo or not, like if you can tolerate it. I
Oh,
would not
wow.
have been a candidate for that. Your
Ah.
vitamin D, how you, because vitamin D deficiency is a driver of cancer
Mm.
as well.
Okay.
So I don't process vitamin D very
Mm.
well. So I need to supplement big time and also be in the sun.
Mhm.
So there's Arizona. Yay.
Yeah.
So things like that. So it's very, very gives you a ton of information, but
Mm.
that's something you're probably going to have to seek out yourself
Yeah.
if you're not working with a MAT-C, which is the metabolic approach to cancer um, practitioner.
Okay.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah. So comprehensive testing. So do lots of testing, and
Mm.
then the last is it's called the CDC, and it is looking at circadian rhythms, looking at your diet and your community is the fifth step. And that's, as an advocate, Michelle, that's where I'm going to be
Yeah.
really instrumental,
Okay.
is looking at sleep patterns, looking at your diet. How are you eating? Are you eating healthy, but you're eating oils that are completely causing inflammation in your body, which you do
Mm.
not want if you're going
Mhm.
through a cancering process. So those are the things that we look at in your diet. And then community. So being in community, doing yoga, being with people, not isolating yourself. So
Yeah.
being in a supportive community.
Right.
Yeah.
Supportive community. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow. I'm going to have a hard time bringing this down to 2 steps. I'm like shooting off the cuff here with this, but I'm going to say your first step I'm going to suggest is to get the metabolic approach to cancer and do
yes.
the test in there. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. Great
I,
step.
it's been in my cart forever since you first did the first episode, but now I'm going to hit order because I'm going to get it and do that test. So because I currently don't have cancer, but so I'm going to speak to these 2 steps being for anyone.
Yes.
So the
For sure.
first step is probably to get that book and look at the whatever your highest score is. And I'll say the second step should probably be just anything that Tina said today. It could be the reducing your toxins in some way, or it could be anything that she said today, like getting rid of plastic. Lisa and I recently did that ourselves. We both got rid of all our plastic in our Tupperware drawer, and now I have all glass. And
Yep.
it could be just that.
Yep.
So whatever like really like hit you today, like, oh, that sounds easy. Let's go with one of those. Whatever sounds easy to do.
Simple, right? Simple
Simple.
steps.
Let's choose that and do that today. Yeah. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, those are two really, really good steps, Michelle.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you
And
for that
and
affirmation.
what's nice too about that book is you get that book,
Yeah.
and I mean, I would read, the first couple chapters because it really explains
Okay.
um the roots of where this came from. And
Mhm.
it has to make sense to you, right? For you to actually keep reading and be on board, because that's,
Mhm.
that's that first step. But you don't have to read it cover to cover.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
You take the quiz, and then you go to that
Ah, yes.
chapter,
Okay.
and then you get those steps and the background of it, and can be like, okay, I can do this one step. But that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing, is just don't be overwhelmed, because what does an overwhelmed mind do?
Goes offline again, goes
We
to
go offline
fight
and
or
we don't
flight.
do anything, right?
Yeah.
And so don't go there, but just
Mhm.
what can I do? And like you
Mhm.
said, be proud of yourself. Like, you are moving towards cultivating that
Mhm.
health, and you are doing something. So
Yeah.
be proud of yourself.
Yeah, you just took the overwhelm away from like another book. Oh no, I don't have
I
time to read.
know.
You took the overwhelm away. Thank you. I didn't prep you for this question, Tina, but I'm going to ask you an off the
Uh-oh.
cuff question.
Okay.
When it seems to me the theme of this episode is empowerment and taking control of your health, which was, exactly the subject of the first one. So, what would be your current favorite habit or simple step that you do towards being kind to yourself and creating that health in your body? Do you have one that comes to mind? It could be a really tiny thing.
You know what it is? And for me, and you know this because we're wired the same way,
Yep.
is stopping, doing that first step that I just talked about,
Stop and breathe.
stopping and breathing. No, seriously, and breathing. And you've taught me that the Holy Spirit lives in the breath, right? He
Mhm.
breathed into us.
Mhm.
And even the scripture in Acts, right?
Yeah.
Um, that
We
was,
move and live and move and breathe. And
yes,
that one. Yeah, that one.
that one. Okay, anyway. Yes. So the breath, but just even going back to Genesis, like the breath of God, like
Mhm.
that's where the Holy Spirit lives, not in the busy,
Yeah.
not in the steps, not in the breeding and the doing. And that's where I just have my natural bent. That's what I do to be in control. But also when you get a cancer diagnosis, that's what are we going to do? What are we going to do? So,
Yeah.
but now it's that I'm through that. I got to go back to that, because you kind of go back to just do, and although
Yeah.
I'm eating my low carb diet, my personality is, so for me, it's really focusing on my breath and believing that
Mm.
it's doing more than I could do by going for a marathon run.
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
still working on that, because
Yeah.
I'm fighting against old tape, right?
Right.
But
And it's not as tangible that
yes.
what a breath can do. And I just can't help but think of that the word for breath and wind and spirit is all the same, ruah. So you breathe in the spirit of God, and he's already there, but you're just like recognizing that he's there. I don't know if this is the scripture you're thinking about, but it's formed in my mind now that in him we live and move and have our being. I don't know if that's the same one, but I love that verse
Oh,
anyway.
I love
So I'd
that.
throw it out there.
I love that.
Yeah. So in all this, friends, do not become overwhelmed. Breathe. Just breathe. And with gratitude for the life and the breath that's inside of us, right? I'm so grateful for you, Tina, for what you've taught me about my healthcare and empowerment.
Mm,
Not just with that, the way you cheerlead women and you encourage them to be their best. And you've done that for me. You've done
mm.
that for all the women in your life. So I'm very grateful. Any last thing you want to cheerlead us on?
To lead you on,
Yeah. You've given
I
us
mean,
a lot, so don't feel like you have to give us more.
okay. Well, again, it's just like, the question is, where can I empower myself?
Yeah.
Where can I be empowered? And
Mhm.
sometimes that, I mean, hopefully that first step will be to breathe and feeling that empowerment, and
Mhm.
from a source that is never ending,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
But also just being that, being I like to say, getting your own back, right? And
I was just
just
thinking that. Be your own best friend.
be your own, and
Yeah.
that's like, be your own best friend. But it really goes back, it really is true, because
Yeah.
that's, I mean, that's who we got, at the end of the day. We got us and
Yep.
we got Jesus. So,
These are our bodies, these are our temples, and we take care of them as best you can without overwhelm, friends. Yeah, without overwhelm.
yes. And I
Take a
just want to
simple
say
step.
too, thank you to you and Lisa, because you're doing an amazing job of just, breaking things down and giving us just a few things to think about after a big podcast, or
Mhm.
we can go so many ways and there's so many
Mhm.
podcasts. So I love what you are doing, and I just thank you for
Mhm.
your hard work, and because it's heart and soul that you put into this. So
Mhm.
thank you guys so much.
Thank you, Tina. All right, we're going to put Tina's email here if you have any other questions for her. I'm just so grateful that you took this time, Tina. Thank you for being with us. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Michelle. Bye.
Bye.
We are so glad you joined us today, and we hope we've inspired you to take that one simple step for the whole you.
And if you've enjoyed this podcast, would you help us spread the word by passing it on to your friends and family, and also leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Instagram, and those links are in the show notes. And as always, consult your healthcare provider before implementing any major exercise or diet changes. We hope to see you next week. Bye.